to Haresh as well. Haresh, what are your thoughts on our question this morning? And I suppose a lot of the comments that you've heard so far in the programme.
Well, fortunately, I've actually worked in quite a lot of the industries that are being mentioned today. So I can kind of go through it in that way. I'll just start off with the Australian point. I didn't catch the name of the previous listener, so forgive me. Previous speaker, sorry, so forgive me. But I had an experience in Australia when I went to do a placement at the Australian Broadcasting Authority about 19 years ago. And I remember on my first day there, actually, somebody shouted across the road calling me Gandhi. That was my very first experience in Australia, well, outside of the airport. But if I'm honest with you, aside from that, I had no other issue there. I mean, everything else was great. I had a brilliant time. But I'm not going to say that you can generalize and say the whole country's racist just from one or two of these incidents that are a few of these incidents that are being brought up today. Then I've also worked in the entertainment industry because I've been a journalist. I've worked as an actor. I've been to drama school, so I can completely relate to some of the comments that are being made today. And then also I work as a barrister now full time, and I'm also a documentary filmmaker. I've done some comedian work. So in all of these industries that I've worked, I've actually experienced bits of racism in different pockets. Now, what I will say is, working backwards now from my legal point of view, very sadly, very, very sadly, and I say this to a lot of clients who bring their cases to me on race issues, is that I think it's about 14% of the actual claims that go to tribunal are race-related. I may have my figures wrong, so any lawyers listening, forgive me, but it's about 14%. And now only about 3%, it's shocking actually, only about 3% of those claims, discrimination claims, actually succeed. Now, coming back to the point about saying that societies are racist as a whole, I disagree with that. I will disagree with that because they're not. I've worked with many, many people. Whilst I've even suffered a lot of racism in the past, in a working life in the past as well, what I've learned is there are actually some very nice people who are not racist, who are very welcoming out there as well. And the key thing I think actually, that it comes down to, not in all cases you can do this, but in a lot of cases, is education. I think if you can actually educate other people about your cultural needs, your cultural preferences, whatever it may be, it sometimes helps, because actually the key issue is the lack of knowledge, understanding, and the ignorance of certain people. I just recall when I used to go for auditions, I remember actually I went to the Clothes Show live. This was about 15, 16 years ago when I was doing some modelling. Yeah. And I remember going to the actual stands of these top agencies in London, and they were looking at me up and down. Now, at that time, there wasn't that many Indian models in the actual modelling industry. There's a lot more now. But I just recall the way they looked at me and discarded me as though you're not really what we want, because if you looked at their books, it had me but white, basically, right, or even black up to a point. But Indian people were not that represented. Now, then I asked myself the question: are they racist, or are they just fulfilling what is the status quo? Yeah. So you get into lots of debate. So I am also slightly going to sit on the fence and say that the whole society is going to be racist. I mean, you cannot say that, because I think one thing we all forget also is that, we have managed to, a lot of us have come to this country, as I know our parents have. We've grown up here. We've had some really good careers, really good lives, and there's some really, really positive role models in high positions. However, at the same time, there is still racism there. And what I will say, and this is the sad reality, it's always been there. It's there today, and sadly, it will always be there until and if people are willing to be educated, and that's where the key is, in my view.
Okay, that's an interesting point of view. Thank you, Haresh. Nalintha, thanks.